Hey guys, it's Kokoro. This is going to be my first impressions on what I've seen so far for the 2016 summer anime season, so my opinions on a couple episodes at the most. Keep in mind, again, my opinions, you can agree or disagree. Basic format will be what the show's about, if I liked it, didn't like it, and if I recommend it to somebody based on what they like or might not like. I have a lot to go over, so we'll be using the My Anime List chart here, going from left to right, top to bottom. And we'll start off with Shokugeki no Soma Season 2, or Food Wars. Now, since this is a Season 2, if you're watching this, you're a fan of the show, and if you're not watching it, it's for one of two reasons. One, you did not like Season 1, or two, you haven't seen Season 1. And for those who haven't seen Season 1 and want to know what the show's about, simply, it's student Iron chefs make food that is so good you have an orgasm. The longer version of the story background would be a group of students go to an elite culinary school where they not just learn how to cook, but they battle each other out in like boot camp type Iron Chef style battles where it's a winner take all type scenario where only the best of the best can survive. So it's really a battle shonen with cooking instead of actual fighting. The characters are really fun to watch. There's some fan service in it. Well, a lot of fan service in it. Not one of those shows you want to watch with like your parents. Good tense action, with the food battles. Good character development, good music, good directing. The pacing is good, funny. It's one of those few shows where I actually read ahead to find out what happens next. Like, that's how excited I am for continuing watching this show. So I would highly recommend this series. If you haven't given it a shot, give it a shot. And if you are watching it right now, I hope that you are as excited about what's coming next as I am. Speaking of food, though, we have orange. Probably nothing to do with oranges or the color orange. Well, it might later on. I don't know yet. This is a drama/romance with some sci-fi elements into it, and the sci-fi element seems to be that the main character, Naho, gets a letter from herself 10 years in the future, telling her past self, hey, I have all these regrets on how I handled a new student, Kakeru, and I want you to fix them. And you get the feeling that something really bad has happened, and it's one of the regrets. But it's also that she wants to fix these things, but Kakeru's a new person, and, it's awkward to talk to new people, and she wants to be nice to her. Like, Naho seems to be a person who is a nice person deep down, but she's also kind of shy and awkward overall. And it's things like that where I think a lot of people, in a sense, can relate to her. That's going to be a nice key factor within the anime, how they handle that. Also the romance, obviously she falls for him pretty quickly, or not quite fall, but you can tell that something's going to be brewing, and that there might be some love struggles. And also the drama takes place where everything went wrong and what exactly is going to happen later on. Also how they handle the sci-fi element and other things like that. So there's a lot of moving parts with this anime. A lot of ways it can go wrong, because I believe if one of these things isn't balanced out enough that this anime can go flat. But if they all work together like it seems to be right now, this could be a very enjoyable ride. 91 Days. This takes place during Prohibition. It's about Aurelio, who wants to get revenge on the people who killed his family, I believe his parents and brother. It's a mafia story. Basically warring mafia factions, something like that. The characters seem okay, like nothing special. It's really more of the story that seems impressive, where it's how they gonna move around these characters within the story. Okay, this guy is related to this gang, and this one's related to this gang, and this guy killed this person, this guy wants this person dead. Just like a lot of information and people being tossed around, and it's hard to keep track of right now because not everybody really has a face just yet. Motives for characters aren't entirely clear just yet either. I believe once they establish some of these things that this show will become a lot better. Right now, for me, it is a little bit confusing, and I do wish that they took a little bit of time to slow down and establish, well, this person believes in this and wants this to happen, and do this for a few more characters. But they definitely seem really focused on getting some of the more action stuff and some of the plot twists, and this is an original, so it's not based on anything. The closest thing I can compare it to is Bacano, only because they take place during the same time period in the same place, but besides that, they're just completely different shows. This might be one of those anime where it's better to wait and see if the show becomes good, so binge it after, when it's near its end, just to get a sense of, I didn't waste my time on something that turned out to be crap. Even though it does have the pieces to become a great show, it just has to execute those pieces and move them around in the right ways. From the Mafia to the Mob, we have Mob Psycho 100. This is a comedy. It's done by the person who did One Punch Man. It's different than One Punch Man, though. And I believe the story goes is that he wasn't a good artist, so they didn't want to do One Punch Man the anime, and instead they did but they let him draw for this. And you can tell that the art style, it isn't like bad per se, it's like its own thing, even though I will say that I definitely don't like it as much as a more traditional artwork for anime. The animation is okay. It's about our main character, who called Mob is his nickname, that he's a psychic, but he has gotten some negative attention because of it. But he gets a psychic mentor who happens to be a con artist using him to make money. Basically, some of the jobs they do, and also how he deals with his basic life and being a psychic. So I thought the first episode was okay. Like, the first part was kind of boring and slow in my opinion, but the second part I really liked. Not really much else to say. It's going to be I'd say 2 or 3 different, like, almost standalone parts of episodes. So something like, say, Squid Girl, which had various skits and scenarios for the characters, like something very similar to one of those. Again, the art style isn't my thing, but I can accept it, and it's not a big turnoff in either way. Mob Psycho 100, pretty funny. If you're not into it at first, wait a little bit, it gets better. Speaking of art styles, we have Berserk 2016. This is a reboot of this franchise, and people were really excited about it at first, and then they found out it was going to be all 3D CG, and they were suddenly not excited. I will say about the CG, it's not the worst 3D anime I've ever seen, but it's like not good. The other thing is that the entry into the show is so high. It's like, I watched the first show, right? The original one, and for some of the manga. So I know a little bit of what's happening, but I'm still really lost. I have no clue really what's going on overall. That's like too bad, because I'm someone who watches a lot of anime, and I've seen everything, right? There are people out there who know a lot more than I do, but I know quite a bit, and I know some fans, they want to watch or like at least learn about some of the older stuff, or the ones who don't, maybe something like this can get them interested. It's just that when something like Berserk 2016 comes out, it's like such a big hurdle in the first place because of the animation. And I understand that maybe 20 years from now, we'll look back on this and be like, wow, it was a pioneer in animation, and now every show is like this, only better quality. Like, I don't think that's going to be what's going to happen. It's just that it's a shame, because it could have been an avenue to get people interested in classic shows and material, and we have something that I believe like only the true diehard Berserk fans would really get into. We also have Taboo Tattoo, or Where All of JC Staff's Budget Has Gone. Now, this show uses some CG, I believe, but it uses it in smart ways to enhance a show in like certain areas. It's like, needless to say, this show looks incredible. The animation, the scenery, the cinematography, the editing, the fight sequences, all great. So, a lot going for it. And then you get to the actual show, which is a generic superpower shonen show. Something like Index, I'd say. Only only not as funny and not as good, I guess. It seems to be executed well though, at least. Like, you can tell it's generic, but it has a certain flair to it, and a certain type of pacing, and enough to keep you interested in various ways, one of them being fan service, where you can kind of accept that it's not going to be the most original show in the world. Our main character, Saeji, he gets a tattoo, and like all tattoos in the show, his is gives him powers, but his is super special because it gives him an even more special power, I suppose. And now it's just involved with like a bunch of people who want the tattoo, or people who want to protect him from the tattoo, and he has to learn about his power and how to control it, because now he can be the best there ever was. It's one of those shows. Again, really high production values, but pretty generic plot and characters overall. Sweetness and Lightning, this is the feel-good show of the season. I have to say, there isn't a lot bad I can say about this at all. It's just so enjoyable to watch. It's about a father and daughter, and, well, the mom died, and now the father wants to take care of the daughter, but one of the things he's clearly lacking in is being able to cook good food. So one day, he takes his daughter to a restaurant, only the chef isn't there, but the chef's daughter is there. And the daughter's like, wait a minute, I can make some food for you. But it turns out she can't really cook either. So the show becomes about how they learn how to make good food together. And it is really fun and enjoyable. The little girl is voiced by an actual little girl, so just like in Barakamon. And we'll get to stuff with Barakamon related a little bit later. And speaking of that, like, I suppose Barakamon is a pretty apt comparison to the way this show will make a lot of people feel. Really nothing to complain about. I definitely recommend this. One of the best of the season. Rewrite is a key show, so the game did Clannad, Canon, Air, Little Busters. I could go on, keep naming some of them. So a lot of pretty well-to-do shows. Most of them have been adapted by major studios, or at least well-to-do ones like Kyoto Animation. This one is done by 8-Bit, and the lack of quality definitely shows. Nothing against 8-Bit, right? I mean, they've done some okay stuff before, but it's just that it's clear that the show already looks dated, you know, when it, like this season, okay? And that's not even the big problem. The big issue is that the first episode, it was a double, so it's 48 minutes, and it felt like I was watching somebody play through the visual novel. Like, a lot of characters were being introduced, and I have no real sense on who they are and where they fit into the story, or what they're going to do, or really their personalities or characters. Like, even the main point of the story, which is the guy has a power to rewrite parts of his body to become stronger and enhance them. Like, even that doesn't... I don't know how that's going to fit into the show either. A lot of mystery and just lots of information. I do think people who have read the VN, or who at least followed it along, will have a better grasp on what's going on than I do. But for somebody who has no idea, I still have no idea. Danganronpa 3, this is the sequel to Danganronpa 2. And wondering, is this a Danganronpa 2 anime I missed? There's not. This is a sequel to the game, because a guy was like, hey, I'm going to make Danganronpa 3, but the story will only work as an anime. For whatever reasons he thought this was, there are two anime for this. There's the Future arc and the Despair arc, and they're meant to be watched together. Before also you watch this, you should bear in mind that there are major spoilers for the games in the first episode. So if you don't want that to be spoiled for you, play the games first and then watch this. I do think that the people watching this show are already fans of the series and the game, and I don't really have to tell them that, but just in case here. My problem is that I'm just not a fan of the franchise as a whole. I mean, I like some of the characters and some of the things are okay, but it's just not a thing I really get into. Like Mo-kun, I can't stand him. Like, I want to bash his face in. Like, the only thing I think would be more rage-inducing to me is if it was like the Five Nights at Freddy bear or whatever, or rabbit or whatever it is in my face, than this like black and white abomination here. I will say between the two though, I think the despair arc is a little bit more enjoyable just because it just seems to be like a pleasant, slice of life comedy thing almost in a school, which is definitely something more up my alley. And it seems like it might have less of an entry barrier than the future arc, where it's like, okay, you really have to know a lot about what's going on. However, at the same time, when I'm watching the Despair arc, I feel like I'm missing something because I know I'm supposed to be watching both of them together. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on Danganronpa 3. Really not for me, just because I'm not a fan of the franchise, and I know a big thing is going to be, I just hope these shows are good, because Danganronpa 1 sucked. We'll head down to Savamp. When I think about vampires in anime, I either think about Hellsing or something like Vampire Knight. Also something like Seraph of the End. And I'd say this is a little bit closer to Seraph of the End-ish, only more comedy. I don't really know, like, what kind of show this would be similar to. Maybe, Carnival. I really don't watch a lot of shows like this. They're definitely not targeted towards me. This is definitely a girl show. And when I say a girl show, I don't mean like, a romantic comedy. I mean this is straight out guy-on-guy shipping type show here, okay? The main story seems to be where our main character stumbles upon a black cat who calls Kuro, which means black, and the cat has to be a vampire. Now he's in a world where he has to fight other vampires or savamps. They all seem, I guess from what I've seen on the first couple of episodes, where they have an extreme personality, and this personality is what's used to drive the comedy of the show. I just didn't find it that funny. It seemed kind of forced overall. The main thing is that really turned me off to the show is that in the second episode, one of the characters goes on how much he likes killing people, and I'm thinking, is this your entire character? Anyway, I would say that if you are one of those fangirls who really like these shows, watch this, good for you. Okay, you have a show that you can really like. For me, and I think for a lot of people like me, they're not really going to be into the show. Again, everybody has different tastes, so we'll move on to a show that I think will also have people with different tastes have different opinions on, Maso Gakuen HH. And whenever you have an X between two letters, you know there's going to be a lot of plot. And there is a lot of plot. Well, let's go over the story first. Our main character, Hida Kusuna, he has a heart hybrid gear, and his is too weak to be useful in battle by itself, but he can use it to power up other people's gears by doing perverted things to them. I'll say right off, even though I think I tolerate these shows a lot more than other people, because there's definitely a group of anime fans who are like, all fan service is awful and they should all go away. Like, I'm not part of that group. I like my plot, okay? Like, this, I will admit though, a lot of these shows are not good. And not because of the fan service, but because it's just, they rely on it too much, or just don't use it in like good ways. It's not only generic, but it's like lazy and cheap. And I'll explain why. Setup for the show is that, one, the school part where either the girls want the D or are tsundere for the D. Two, they go in the field and have their outfits on, and A+ for that, Then there's the fight, and they get beat up, and then they want to get powered up, and so the groping commences. Then there's a lackluster fight sequence, and then, well, maybe there's a reveal later on, or some cliffhanger, or some other things like that happen, and it repeats for the next episode. The problem here is couplefold. One is that the fan service, it's there, and it's appreciated. Like, if you take a still of this show, right, and just have, wow, okay, this is pretty good, I can get behind this. But then you watch it, and the way it unfolds and the sequence of it, it's not really exciting or like tantalizing in any way. Compare it to something like To Love Ru, where the fan service in that show, like, it can really get somebody riled up pretty quickly. That's good use of the fan service. Or a show like Yushibu, where it's there, but it's in points of the show where you can appreciate it a little bit more. It's here, just boom, in your face, bang, 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 that's it. And for some people, they might like that, but for me, it's also that the character development where, character development in a fan service show? Never. Well, watch something like Heaven Sauce Property. That's a fan service show, but it has a ton of character development and it's a pretty story-driven show. Like, I was really impressed by it. This is one of the best fan service shows I think that there is out right now. And that was ages ago, by the way. Something like Maiso Gakuen HH. It's very sexualized, but it's just not sexy. Handa-Kun is a Barakamon prequel, so if you liked Barakamon, that does not matter at all, because it has almost nothing to do with it, unfortunately. It's a comedy, and it's about Handa-Kun, obviously, who is this master calligrapher, like in Barakamon, where he has this mystique around him, where everybody thinks he's some sort of super person, and revere him to the highest level, but he doesn't know this, right? He's totally oblivious to this fact, and that's pretty funny overall, because a lot of the situations just have to do with misunderstanding. One of the problems, though, is that none of the jokes are, that great. I mean, they're all funny, but they take too long to develop. It's just one of those shows where, I don't think anything is going to really turn somebody off to it, but it's not quite good enough the way people will be like, wow, this show is amazing. So I believe it'll be teetering on the edge of a lot of people's watch or don't watch. New game. This is a cute girls doing cute things type show. Takes place in a game company. So our main character, Ayoba, is straight out of high school. She joins a game company she's making a sequel to the game that made him want to become a game developer in the first place, which is nice. It's cute. All the characters are really pleasant to look at. It is moe, and I will say right off that if you don't like moe stuff, this isn't for you. Okay, that's just straight out. And nothing in this show right now is gonna change your mind about it. But if you do like moe, or at least can tolerate it, it looks like it could be decent at least. The characters are fun, has pretty good comedy, lots of those lesbian undertones going around, some waifu bait material already. I especially like the blonde, who's like the leader of the department, who seems to not wear pants a lot. She's definitely high up on my list. It's just and also, I'd say that the cast seems to be pretty well balanced in their personalities and their gimmicks, showing signs too of developing personal growth, at least for Ayoba, who's the main character. I've also heard some people be like, I hope this is a more serious take on the industry. It's based on a four-comer, guys. I mean, come on. It's a slice of life comedy here. Alder in the sky. The story seems to be our main character, Ikta, is a lazy guy who turns into a super smart general all of a sudden. This show, within the first couple episodes, does a lot. One, it establishes a set of main characters. It establishes their base personalities, some of their history, how they might conflict with each other in a situation. They have a conflict where they have to work together. Things like a twist, they have their strengths, some of their weaknesses, some of their history with each other, their goals in life, some political intrigue. A lot happens. I was impressed at how much they seem to jam-pack. They don't waste time with useless stuff. The main girl, too, seems pretty hot. That's a thing. She also seems like a pretty strong character, too. So, the best of both worlds, I guess you can say. Also some foreshadowing on what may be happening in the future. I would keep my eye on this show, because it's being set up very well. They definitely seem to be taking it seriously, but at the same time, it's just funny enough in parts where, okay, well, it's not like I'm bashing my head against the wall. I think this is going to be a show that doesn't get as much attention as some other ones. I would say, if you enjoy it, the first few episodes, share it with your friends, because this one might need some help. The art club has a problem. Well, before I watch a lot of shows, I read the description of it to see, what I'm getting into. I didn't do it for this show. So for the first 10 seconds, I was like, okay, a show about art. And then all of a sudden, it was like, look at the waifu I drew. And I'm like, oh my god. It's actually pretty funny though. The art club is just like a lot of these shows, the avenue on where the situations start taking place. It has, not only has a comedy, and the comedy is kind of cringy, but it's just cringy enough where it's funny, right? I mean, a lot of comedy, I forget who says this, but paraphrasing, like, is comedy makes somebody, at least somebody, feel uncomfortable, and that's why it's funny type of feelings, and that's what I feel this show is trying to get across, and it's doing it pretty well in my opinion. It also has this romance angle to it, where it's not a real romance, it's like almost unrequited, or just like a small one overall, but it adds just that little extra to the show that would make a show that's just funny and cute to a show that's maybe a little bit more than that. Quadelia Code, I don't really know what to say. It's done by A1 Pictures, and that's already a red flag in the minds of a lot of anime viewers. But for those of you who have not run away upon hearing that dreaded name, this is based on light novels. If you're still with me after that, it's based on 3 light novels. So a super team of 3 authors brought their characters together to make this one show. The story is the 3 schools, and each author was responsible for a different school. So one is like a gunner school, one is like a magic school, the other one's like the fleet, are defending the world against some generic threat, not really important, and they're working together to protect people or something like that. And the schools get points for the number of kills they have, whatever, so it's like 10 points to Gryffindor. So it's a lot of competition involved. The characters, 2 characters per school, and these are the main characters, they form like an elite group they do like more of the dangerous missions, I suppose. None of them individually are great. Okay, it's like a chuny edgemaster guy. There's a lazy genius who can't be bothered to really move up in the rankings. There's a super powerful girl who wants to protect people, but is kind of dumb. At the same time, when they're together and when they're interacting with each other, it's entertaining to watch because, one, it's like, okay, how are they going to work together? Because they clearly don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. They don't like each other. It's their interaction and the banter and the bickering and how they begin to form, not quite bonds, but at least establish, like, okay, we have to work together and solve these problems. That's pretty good, honestly, okay? And if this show can maintain that and make the cast greater than the sum of its parts, good for them, okay? Then I would applaud it, and I would even say that this could become a good show. Again, that's a pretty big hurdle to cross, but it could happen. Days. This is a sports anime, and before I go on, I do not like a lot of sports anime. It's too slow. I don't like a lot of the cliches a lot. And the sports anime I do like, though, I really like Haikyuu, Chayafuru, One Outs. Those are amazing shows in my opinion. Days, it just doesn't fall in that category from what I've seen of it. The first is that, and this is like a small part, the main character has this perma blush on his face. It's just really annoying. And even in the picture on the My Anime List chart, he has the blush on. It's the animation consistency seems to be kind of off. Some parts look really good, some parts look like pretty bad. The blonde guy looks like he should be in a completely different show. I think it's the way that they shade his hair. But also, it's our main character, the perma blush guy. He gets kind of coaxed into playing soccer and in like a pickup game or whatever. And has no talent for soccer, but he just tries his best, and through perseverance, he scores a goal, whatever. I don't know really what happens, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should join us. You can play soccer with us," and things like that. So, and then he becomes determined to become better at the sport. It doesn't have those, exciting moments really, and it's when you watch something like Shiaifuru, and you see that part where Chihaya takes the card for the first time when they're kids. against Arata, those moments like that, you just know that, okay, now this show could be special. Or in Haikyuu, where you see Hinata in middle school struggling to fight against Kageyama, I believe his name is, and then they meet in high school and they start butting heads, but then you just know that something special might be happening in the show. Like Days, it doesn't have one of those moments where I can definitively say that, hey, this show has the makings of something special. And it's not like every show will have that or even needs that. It's just that there's nothing in it, at least for me, where I'd be like, okay, it may not be great right now, but it can tread water a little bit and become a lot better later on. The Morose Monokein, or there are a lot of no's in this, so the Morose Monokein, however you say it. If you've seen Natsumi's book Never Ending Friends, which is not ending anytime soon because it's getting another season next season, this is basically a similar setup. Our main character, Ashiya, I believe how to say his name, he gets attached to a yokai. Well, a yokai gets attached to him. A yokai is a demon, by the way, and I won't really go into much about the difference between, like, say, a traditional religious type demon and a yokai Japanese style demon, different cultures, different interpretations of the word. Anyway, he wants to get rid of it because it's like draining his energy, so he goes to the Monokein for help. And it turns out, because he can actually see the yokai, that he's valuable, because not a lot of people can see yokai, and he ends up working for the Monokein. Learns about the different yokai, what they're like, why they're in the world, what they need to go back, and this is definitely more of a comedy versus more of the slow moving drama type show that Natsume is. But as somebody who's been getting kind of tired with the formula Natsume has been using and the characters and just how everything seems to be the same overall, this is a pretty nice change of pace in my opinion. I definitely don't think it's as good overall, but again, it is interesting to see how a different character would react in a similar type of setup. Amanchu. This is done by the guys who did Area. So if you've seen Area, and if you've seen this show, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you could guess. It even has a cat that acts as some sort of like manager or whatever. It's about scuba diving and living life to the fullest and things like that. It's very enjoyable, very relaxing. I watched the show and I think to myself, wow, this is a great show. And then it ends, and the only thing I remember is that the main girl's face goes all weird for half the episode. Like they did it in Area too. Like Alice Carroll was the one who did it the most, I believe. Here is just all the time, and I think that the make or break point on a lot of people is going to be how they handle this weird face changing stuff, because it is a slow moving show. And anybody who wants like more action or something like that, this isn't for them. But for those who do enjoy these types of shows, maybe the face isn't gonna do it for you. Again, though, I think it's a good show. Hasukoi Monster, or First Love Monster. Story here is our main girl, who looks like she's in 5th grade, is in high school, falls for a guy who looks like he's in high school, but is in 5th grade. Oh, okay. And it's like a story about how they deal with their weird relationship and how they deal with the obstacles and people like not approving for obvious reasons about it, and maybe some not so obvious reasons about it. As a comedy, part of the comedy is that, the age difference and how they look and everything, but also there's definitely some cringe in it, like some dick jokes by the 5th graders to make them act like typical kids. There's some pretty funny things too, okay? Like I won't lie, some of the humor, it's out there, but I was surprised how much I was laughing at some parts of the show. It's definitely not the most consistent humor, but when it hits good, it hits really good. There's also the fact that the main guy, the 5th grader, sometimes he acts like he's in 5th grade, and other times he acts more like he looks, like in high school at least. And it's this type of inconsistency where I think the balance, how they balance it out, will be what really tips the show into, well, this is weird, to okay, now this is pretty good. Also this thing too where the girl has to figure out whether this is like babysitting or it's just in an actual type of relationship. A lot of hurdles for the show to jump over. In the end, I do think this can be a good show. It just has some work to do and some fleshing out and some knots to untie, per se. Battery! This is about baseball. And if you thought baseball was boring to watch in real life, this show is not going to change your mind, at least based on the first episode. It's our main character, he's like the best pitcher in the land, but he can't find a catcher who can catch his balls because, well, his pitches are too weird or something like that. And he doesn't get scouted. I don't know, just the setup seems kind of weird to begin with. And then, it's not really a lot of baseball. It's just him finding out that now there's a kid who can catch his ball, and this little kid argues with a grandpa about baseball. This is based on a novel that is, I understand, was pretty well to do, and maybe that has to do with it too, because maybe it'll get better later on. I just don't have the patience or the time to wait for that to happen. Hitomi no Shida, The Outcast. This is about zombies. And I want to tell you what the show's about, but I can't. And here's why. You ever watch an anime, and all of a sudden you get this scene where a cat and a crow are talking to each other. And the cat is like, "Nya nya, our master has a great plan." And then the crow is like, "Caw, we're not going to tell you what the plan is or even who our master is until it is convenient for plot reasons." And they do this for the entire episode. That is what this show is right now. What's good about it? I don't know. The knife girl seems kind of moe, I guess. But beyond that, I'm not sure something, most people can really get into. Chiyodanshi, this is about a male cheerleader group in a university. And right away, I'll say this is not something that's targeted towards me, it seems. I did give it a shot, though. I gave Free a shot, and I finished Free, and I enjoyed it. I actually thought Free would have been pretty good if they got rid of some of the more angsty stuff. I wasn't quite into that, okay? But it was well animated, it was funny in places, things like that. Chiyodanshi is just not funny in a lot of places. The setup to recruit people for the club was boring. There's not enough real cheerleading stuff. It's just not a good feel. I'm not even sure the show gave a good feel on what the rest of the series is going to be like. But again, it's one of those shows that I would say would have really had to impress me for me to continue watching, and it didn't quite do that. Just not up my alley. Psyche Kusuo? No Psychic Non? I believe it is. This is a slice of life comedy where Kusuo has psychic powers, but they're not that great. And a bunch of skits where basically he exhibits on how he uses them in everyday life and how sometimes, well, maybe he's right. Maybe they aren't that great. It's pretty funny. Short skits, not all of them are great, but they're all pretty funny. Overall, I'd say it's pretty consistent. They're just fast enough where you have anticipation, but at the same time, the payoff is good enough where it's ha ha ha. Okay, that's pretty funny. Definitely better than Handa-Kun, in my opinion. The characters themselves, they're not great per se. I'm not sure. Something say Squid Girl, where I really like a lot of the characters in that show because their personalities are a little bit more extreme and they stand out a little bit. I do think that this show, the characters had to start standing out more to become elevated to a little bit more, but I don't think anybody is going to complain about this from a comedy standpoint. Fate Colonnade Linear Prisma Ilia 3 Ray, well, however you say it, Prisma Ilia. This is the 4th season, and so if you're watching this show, you're a fan of the series. I'm a huge fan now of Prisma Ilia. I was kind of on the fence after the 2nd season, but after the 3rd season, I was fully on board. Full justice ahead. if you don't know what Prism Ilya is, it's a spin-off of the Fate series, where it's basically if Ilya had a good upbringing and became a magical girl. If you're wondering what kind of entry barriers there are to watching this show, I would recommend you watch UBW, and probably more so Fate Stay Night, because I think that one establishes Ilya a little bit more than UBW does, even though like Fate Stay Night isn't a good anime by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, reading the VN is also a pretty good way to get into it. That's not even like completely required, right? That's just to get an idea on who the characters are in the main universe. The main difference is obviously is that this is a lot cuter, a little bit more lighthearted, even though there are serious moments in it and good fight sequences and some drama. Also, there are less characters they focus on, so the development is a lot more streamlined, and I don't quite feel as lost or as disappointed when some characters don't get a lot of attention. More justice, some plot, mostly justice. There's also a Shota in this season too. There's some more moe elements, definitely a lot of lesbian stuff going on, more comedy tossed in there. So it's basically, in my opinion, a lot better. So I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but I was never a fan of the Fate series per se, and I was on the fence about this one. Okay, well, I didn't expect it to be good, and I was surprised on how much I liked it. So if you haven't given it a shot yet, I would give it a shot. Have an open mind. Remember, it's not going to be the Fate series, but it definitely resembles in a way in what some of the Fate series brought to us, plus some moe justice stuff going on too. Speaking of some justice, we have Ange Rirge, or Ange Rirge, whatever it's called. This is based on a card game, and just knowing this makes the story a lot easier to digest. Our main girls, they want to rank up to a different class, I guess. So I guess like their cards are like lower class cards, and they rank up, they evolve in a way, and they're different girls, right? They're like the cat girls, or like the angel girls, like the robot girls, regular basic girls, I don't know, and each of them have their own planet, and I'm assuming that these are like the classes of the cards in the game, and they're fighting these generic enemies, and I don't really know where those would fit into the game either. I don't know, maybe they're shaped like the damage counters or something. I have no idea here. Okay, I'm just guessing. This show, it's not good, okay? I'll say right out. There's nothing really good about the show, except that the characters have pretty good designs overall. Okay, there is one good thing about the show. They live in a bathhouse, it seems, and they're naked a lot. The whole first episode, almost all the girls are naked the entire time. And so, definitely buying the Blu-ray. Jokes aside, though, it's just confusing. Not really, it's boring. I mean, like, not exciting. I don't know what they were thinking. This is like Cancole, but only more confusing. And Strike Witches, I guess, only Strike Witches has good characters, and that one didn't quite throw all these characters into your face, like, right away. Like, I have no clue what's happening here. Regalia, the Three Sacred Stars. Straight out, I didn't enjoy this, and the simple reason is that it did something that I don't think it should have done on episode 1. So basically, our main character, a lowly expressionless in-the-face girl, is my friend. I care about you, but I'm gonna leave you for a while because, well, you have to be safe. And I'm like, okay, and then she gets into like a giant robot and stuff like that happens. It's okay, I understand that you're leaving your friend and you want to be a good person and you're making sacrifices, but I don't really care because I know nothing about you, your friend, your actual relationship with each other. Like, you haven't built up that character where I give a damn about anything like that. And I know a lot of shows do things like that, and some of them more effective than others. Like, I'm not saying you can't get by doing it in one episode. Like, something like, Sheriff of the End is something similar to this in the first episode. Or something like, say, Attack on Titan did something like it in the first episode. And it works in those shows to an extent. It's just that this one, it just seems like they were definitely going for pulling at the heartstrings when they haven't even tied any strings around their heart in the first place. B Project is an anime about a male idol company, and our main character Tsubasa is like a manager, I guess, for the different idol groups. And I was surprised and also relieved when I found that it was not a reverse harem. Instead, it seems to follow around her, going with each different group from an episode to episode basis, learning about some of the work that they do, the difference that they have, and also build and develop the different characters and what they think about their work and their personalities, and how she might have to handle some of them differently than the other ones and other things like that. I don't think it's like the best show, and it's definitely not aimed towards me, but I was surprised on how much I at least tolerated it, okay? Another show I think a lot of people wouldn't expect to enjoy is Binakoku Shiku Bohei Bu Love Love, or High School Earth Defense Love Force, whatever it's called. It has a long name. This is the second season of it. It's about a group of magical guys who have become the Earth's defense force of love, and they have like love making powers, they call it, and they had to fight things that seem slighted and don't have any love in them. It's almost like a parody, I suppose, of magical girl shows, because they do make fun of a few things, and I'm not even sure who this show is actually targeted towards. Like, I would think girls, but I think guys who have seen a lot of magical girl type shows will enjoy the show also, because if you can get around the fact that it takes place in a bathhouse, some of the comedy is pretty good. Like, and none of the characters, like some of them are definitely like pandering a little bit, but it definitely seems like they wanted to make fun, entertaining characters versus anything else. I'd give it a try. I definitely think that the first season is started off strong, but kind of teetered towards the end a little bit. Hopefully this one starts out a little bit better and maintains this consistency throughout. And the last show we'll be seeing is Time Travel Shoujo. This is about a girl who travels in time, obviously, and she learns about things like science and electricity, physics, and also like the difference between society today and back then before the science was discovered, because of like superstitions or other beliefs not quite grounded in the science. And that's interesting too. So yes, it is a educational show overall, so it's not going to blow anybody's gears. Sorry about that. For what it is, I think it does its job pretty well, and I enjoy it. It's something where I think I know what I'm going to get overall, but it's just fun to watch. Like that's really all I'd say about it. So, not gonna be anybody's favorite anime, but I do think that most people will at least appreciate to an extent what it's trying to do. Well, that was everything. Again, I am watching holdovers from last season, which is ReZero, JoJo Season 4, Twin Star Exorcist, and Macross Delta. Those are 4 shows that are, I'd say they're pretty good at least. ReZero definitely is an amazing show. If you want to know the 4 shows this season, besides the 3 sequels, which are, again, Love, Ilya Season 4, and Soma Season 2, which I would consider to be best potential to become the best of the season, they would be in no particular order: Elder Women in the Sky, Sweetness and Lightning, New Game, and Orange. Also 91 Days, but that's more of like a wait and see type for me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends about it. I'm Kokoro. Till next time.